Scott just made
Go
the
back to
point
Thomas
just
Jefferson,
now.
you'll
Used to
read
be a
that-
lot more secure, not just.
Well, it's the Beowulf story of the modern American left. Stalwart fighters for truth and justice, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, ferreting out corruption at the highest levels of government. Glorified by Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman, no less, in All the President's Men, they eventually triumph over government obstructionism, and a key indicator of the guilt of the president was a very specific, very critical, and very missing 18.5-minute gap in the tape-recorded conversations in the White House. Now, President Nixon went on to resign when facing impeachment proceedings over his knowledge of a cover-up of a relatively insignificant burglary of a Democratic Party office at the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. Now, it was impossible to spin the fact that a critical 18-minute conversation had been accidentally erased. And even though no national security secrets were at stake, no top-level access, and even legislation was being sold for millions in cash, and certainly no one actually died through criminal incompetence or innocent people imprisoned as a scapegoat during the cover-up, none of that actually happened. Yet now, we discover that Hillary Clinton, who's guilty of all of those crimes, leaves us not an 18.5-minute gap, but rather a 5-month Grand Canyon of official United States documents, and she continues her campaign under the aegis of papers like the Washington Post that broke the Watergate story. And the reason that she's not in jail is because Democrats. So let's bring in Steve Green and the paper cutout of Scott Ott, who is with us from his home in Texas. And he's just installed one of those 2,400 baud modems, so we should get an update sometime 6 or 7 minutes from now. So watch closely for the eye blink. Gentlemen, pretty much the same question to both of you on this one. Steve, there's an 18-minute gap in the records, and it's evidence of guilt of the president, and it's the commission of a cover-up of a small burglary in a private office. President Nixon resigns. A 5-month gap in the top-level, top-secret official communications of the Secretary of State of the United States of America is dismissed as a lapse in judgment. Care to comment on this?
Yeah, the reason I think, well, part of the reason, other than because Democrats, is people don't quite yet understand, they don't quite grasp the enormity of this thing. And what we need to help people understand this is a simple unit of measurement, which I put together a little presentation on this. So if we take, for our unit of measurement, 18 minutes equals 1 Nixon. All right?
Okay.
18 minutes, 1 Nixon. A
I can see it
Nixon
coming.
is our unit of measurement. So is a 5-month gap. So 5 months is 20 work weeks. 20 work weeks. And we'll assume, just for the sake of argument, that 20 work weeks of 6 days each. Even Hillary's detractors know that she's a hard worker, works long hours. And so we'll say that's 6 days at 10 hours apiece, which may even be underestimating the amount of work Hillary put in as Secretary of State. You know, she flew almost 1 million miles. And, of course, each of those 10 hours contains 60 minutes for a total of 72,000 work minutes. 72,000 work minutes, or, to go back to our standard of measurement, 4,000 Nixons. So 1 Hillary Clinton is worth 4,000 Richard M. Nixons.
Wow. Thank you very much. Scotty, any words for those progressives who look at all the president's men in the West Wing and who see themselves as morally superior guardians of the truth? Now that we see things like mysterious gaps in the records and the use of the IRS to intimidate opponents, all of these were charges in the Nixon impeachment articles. All of this outrage about Nixon were apparently not about principles at all, and in fact, they're nothing more than political assassination of enemies. As Steve Green just pointed out, Hillary Clinton has committed 4 kilo-Nixons of the same kind of cover-up that got a president impeached. What do you say about the supposed moral superiority of those preeners on the left who see themselves as champions of justice?
Well, I think they're still scrambling to try to explain this. And right now, the best thing that they have is, how can you convict somebody from the lack of evidence? I mean, at the very least, we have nothing for a period. During 1 year, it was like January 24th to March 17th, not a single email. Now,
But that's the evidence, Scott.
That's the evidence.
gap is the evidence. She was
Oh, I
supposed to
understand
turn it
that.
all
No,
in.
No. That's your conservative, partisan Republican trying to destroy the country evidence. But there's nothing there, Bill. How can you say that there's something there when there's nothing there? So previously, though, Hillary Clinton had said she turned over everything, okay, except for the yoga
30,000
emails and the bridal, shower kind of things. So if that's the case, then what we have is not what Steve said, a hardworking Secretary of State. What we have is perhaps the laziest Secretary of State in our history, because she did absolutely no official business for periods of up to 3 months at a time. And I think we should go after her for her laziness.
Also, when asked if she had wiped the server, she said, "You mean wipe with a cloth?" And frankly, if you really are that stupid, Madam Clinton, you probably don't deserve to be running this country in the 21st century.
Boxer
Now, my
rocks.
friends, if you think I'm defending President Nixon and his actions, you're completely wrong. It is the job of the press to root out corruption and lawlessness wherever it may be. Doing their job full-time would give us a healthy republic. Not doing it at all would leave us with a corrupt banana republic. But selectively doing their jobs based on their own political beliefs makes the modern journalist not a champion of virtue, but rather another thug in the organs of state repression and the tyranny of raw power. They're not fighters for truth and freedom. They're morally and ethically no different than the agents of the NKVD or the Gestapo or the Stasi or any other politically driven agents of repression, intimidation, and political control. Modern journalists, with very few exceptions, should be ashamed to show their faces in the presence of free people. For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.